Well, the White House says that the fight against ISIS in Syria is almost over, but it's still unclear when troops there will be pulled out. In a statement released today, the White House writes the military mission to eradicate ISIS in Syria is coming to a rapid end, with ISIS being almost completely destroyed. The United States and our partners remain committed to eliminating the small ISIS presence in Syria that our forces have not already eradicated. This comes after President Trump publicly stated several times that he wants to get out of the war-torn country. Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats says a decision has been reached, but did not go into detail on what it was. The president says that he wants the withdrawal to be soon. There are currently 2,000 American troops in Syria. The White House is calling on its Mideast allies and the United Nations to step up and to help provide stability. I want to bring in Zeke Miller. He's an Associated Press White House reporter and also a CBSN political contributor. Okay, Zeke, so what exactly went into the decision-making to keep U.S. troops in Syria?
Well, this has been part of a long process, similar in many respects to what we saw earlier last year when the president was weighing what to do about Afghanistan. This is a similarly intractable problem where U.S. forces are needed there, or some forces are needed there to maintain stability. So there's a similar interagency review culminating yesterday with the National Security Council Principals Committee meeting. The president attended where this decision was reached that sort of led to this statement. From what we gather thus far, there's no specific timetable for when the president is ordering troops to leave, and the Pentagon is saying they haven't been directed plans to move all of those 2,000 troops out, and it's not entirely clear that all those 2,000 troops will ever leave. But at the same time, the president made clear he does not envision any sort of those U.S. troops being used in a stabilizing capacity, trying to rebuild Syria, put the country, the war-torn, war-torn country back together. Again, he wants to leave that to the UN, and that is really fulfillment of something that we heard the president talk about a lot on the campaign trail, where he wants to sort of invest at home rather than abroad, and force other countries, certainly in the region, there to step up. And that seems to be what we're starting to see here.
So is this a case where what the president wants may not be in line with the advice he's getting from his advisors? And if so, who exactly has his ear on this?
Well, certainly what the president is being told, was told yesterday at that meeting, is that the U.S. can't just pick up and leave. ISIS will come back, will create a vacuum in the region, similar to when the U.S. left, what we often heard the president himself vocalize about the way the U.S. left Iraq in 2010, that creating a vacuum of instability in the region that ultimately led to the creation of the Islamic State. So that's what the president was told by advisors like Mike Pompeo, who's his nominee to be the next Secretary of State, others in the defense and military establishment, also warning about that. If the president had his way, U.S. troops would be out of Syria probably tomorrow, is what officials are telling me. And he's been convinced that there needs to be that time frame. Is it 5 months? Is it 6 months? But that there were plans under consideration to potentially even boost U.S. Troop presence on the ground to provide more of a stabilizing force. That's something that the president rejected. It's possible that a smaller force of a couple hundred, couple dozen even special operators, special forces would remain in Syria carrying out counterterrorism operations or things like that, or other proposals, and that can last for a long period of time. That's the same way that U.S. special forces operate across the globe, but that this larger presence of 2,000 troops is going to diminish at some point, probably in the next 6 months to a year, depending on the precise dynamics on the ground.
Zeke, switching to trade, I want to play some sound for you from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the president's tariffs.
On the negative side, I am not a fan of tariffs, and I am nervous about what appears to be a growing trend in the administration to levy tariffs. Many of you are in agriculture. We are a great exporter of agricultural products. And I am nervous about getting into trade wars, and I hope this doesn't go too far.
Republicans wanted to go into midterms campaigning on their tax bill. Kind of makes sense. So what kind of potential political impact do you think these tariffs could have on the election?
Well, number one, the tariffs that we're seeing coming out of China, the retaliatory tariffs that they proposed overnight, are targeted at major American exports that also happen to, in some cases by design, dramatically impact districts and areas that supported the president. They were designed to inflict maximum retaliatory pain, which is the way these tariffs are, is the logical thing. This was not unexpected. This is what officials at the White House had sort of expected China would do. They hoped China wouldn't, but they were designed to have maximum political cost for the president here and put the squeeze on him, just like the president's trying to put the squeeze on their imports into their exports to the United States. So will this hurt the president and his party come November in the midterm elections? Potentially. The question is, what will be the bigger effect? Will it be the tax cuts and the effect to stimulate the economy? Will people feel that? Will it be, or will it be the narrative of businesses seeing their exports overseas decline, American businesses having trouble selling their products overseas, and that having some sort of downward pressure on the economy? Time will tell there, and that's the risk, the gamble the president is taking here. Certainly, if you look at the stock market, the volatility there the last couple of weeks is something the White House didn't particularly enjoy. They've been trying to soothe the fears of Wall Street, saying, "Oh, just wait for the NAFTA deal." Larry Kudlow was out here not too long ago, the new National Economic Council director, saying, Wall Street just has to wait. We're going to renegotiate NAFTA sometime the next 2 weeks to 2 months, and now they'll be really happy over that. So maybe everyone should just hold off for a second. So there is some discomfort about the direction this is potentially going, but this seems to be where the president has always wanted to go, and he's really driving the train here.
So speaking of where the president wanted to go, at the same time, you've got the White House last night said that the president's announcement to use the military to secure the border would be mobilizing the National Guard. It wouldn't actually be the first president. He wouldn't be the first president to actually do this. We know that both presidents, Obama and Bush, did it as well. Explain to me exactly how this would work.
Well, the way that this works back in 2006, when Obama did it in 2010, it was a surge of National Guard troops that rotated through the border region for some period of time. The question is, will the president basically follow that roadmap and implement the plans that his two predecessors did, or does he envision something much larger and for a longer duration? Right now, the indications from folks in the administration is this will look a lot like the Bush and Obama deployments, something in the realm of about 1,000, maybe 2,000 in that range of National Guardsmen, and they would be deployed to the border region primarily to back up federal law enforcement on the ground, the Customs Border Protection, Border Patrol. They would not be sort of in sort of a it would not be the grand scenes of a military guarding a border like you would see at a war zone. They would be providing operational support and an extra set of eyes and ears for federal law enforcement that's already at the region.
So the president is also urging Congress to act after the last go-round and immigration actually failed. What do you think they want to see at this point?
Well, that's the big question here. Is that we sort of know what the president wants. We don't really know how he wants to get there. He wants a massive border wall, for instance, in sort of trade-off for DACA. But the odds of anything like that getting done, particularly with the budget deal the omnibus signed just a couple of weeks ago, of any legislation that would alleviate this impasse before the midterm seems nil. But even after the midterm elections, unless there's sort of a real pressure on the president, it seems both parties like this as a political fight for them. The president really believes that he can turn immigration into a winning message for him, and it's part of the same way that he did in 2016. He can use that in 2018 and 2020. Many Republicans on Capitol Hill disagree, and Democrats think that they and believe that they can turn that immigration message right around on the president, use the story of the Dreamers, and that will be a powerful political tool for them as well. So, well, both sides can't be right, but both believe they are. So that means that there aren't the prospects of any sort of agreement, certainly in the short term and even the long term, are looking very difficult right now.
Okay, good to know. Zeke Miller, thank you so much for joining us, Zeke.
Thank you for having me.